Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. In this episode, we'll hear from a prison guard who says strange things are going on at night with the prisoners. Then we go to an old jailhouse in Tennessee that seems to have unwelcome guests. But before we get to the stories, let me be the first to say welcome aboard if you like my content but haven't yet subscribed. Let's start with the stories. This might sound crazy and far-fetched, but I think they are taking prisoners and using them in experiments. Well, some of them are being tested, but others just leave and don't come back. I work as a guard at a high-security prison. I've been working here for 8 years now, and I'm still here. I'm not going to say where I work because if I did, I might get fired or, even worse, vanish like some of the prisoners. Since about 2 years ago, I've been working the night shift. I don't know if it's just my prison or all of them, but at night, things happen that nobody knows about. No one who works during the day, at least. Every month or so, 2 to 4 inmates get out of jail. At night, they are locked in their cell, but in the morning, they are gone. I think they are being taken and used in experiments. I say this because some prisoners did come back, but they weren't the same. After a few days, they came back, and you could tell that they were different. One of the prisoners says he got violent with a guard during lockdown, so he was put in the hole for 3 days. Now I know this prisoner pretty well, because we do get to know them. He's not violent. Well, let's just say that he has never done anything bad to the guards and has always been very good. His time was almost up. So why would you want problems after your time is up? Anyway, he disappears for 3 days, and some of the guards say it was because of how he was acting. When he returns, you can see it in his eyes. He's not the same. He doesn't walk the same way and he doesn't act the same way. It's as if his spirit was taken away. There have been a lot of stories like this over the years. But most of them just leave and don't come back. That's what's creepy. Now I'm going to tell you a rumor I heard from another guard. I can't check this out for myself. But I've known this guard for 5 years now, and we hang out together when we're not at work. So I believe what he tells me. He told me that he was on transport duty one night. Which is very strange to do almost all night. And I mean, all transports happen during the day. They must have been short a guard because these weren't the regular guards who were part of the transport detail, and he didn't know them. So, they went and got 3 people who were on death row and had been there for a long time. They are put in the back of a van and driven away. The prison is about a 45-minute drive from where they want to go. At first, the prisoners ask what's happening and where they're going. The other guards just tell them to get in the van and find out for themselves that things are pretty quiet at first. Then one of the other guards starts to tease the prisoners, saying things like, "I hope you guys had a good meal, because you're going to need all the energy you can get." He looks over at the other guard, and they both start laughing. My friend is confused because he doesn't know what's going on. This is the first time he's ever done something like this. He then asked the other guards where this transport was going. One guard says doghouse, and the other guard laughs. At this point, he is very confused, but he decided not to ask any more questions because he thought it would be best. When they get there, they open the back of the van and each prisoner is pulled out by a guard. My friend has no idea what's going on, so he's very confused. He told me that when they got to this place, it was at least 10 miles into the woods. They drove for at least 20 minutes on dirt roads. When they arrive, around this building is a very tall barbed wire fence. They went through this gate with multiple guards and drove up to this loading dock where they unload the prisoners. They take them into the building, and my friend said it looked like an arena with seats facing into the woods and dozens of spotlights shining into the woods like a football stadium but with only box seats. There were a group of other guards who took the inmates into custody, and then they left on the way back, he said. At first, they didn't want to tell him anything, but in the end, they told him that it's a place where creatures like real-life monsters eat. They let the prisoners go, and now these monsters are eating like crazy. One of the guards was there when one of the events happened. He saw 3 men let out into the woods, a siren go off, and a big gate open. When the gate opened, he heard a loud beast running around and killing each man. He said that you can't see much from the ground, which is why they have seats higher up, but he could hear everything. I know it sounds crazy, but I believe him because I've known him for years and he's a very honest person who would never lie about something like this. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or if you know what goes on in prisons at night, but I wanted to tell you about it. Take care and stay safe out there. Hi Donovan, I work as a police officer in the US. Since I've been working for about 6 years, I've seen and heard a lot of strange things. I'm not sure if you like police stories or not, but this one is pretty crazy. I worked the midnight shift at a jail in Tennessee that was in a very small town. There are only 3 cells for men and 1 for women. The building used to be a house, but it had been changed into a jail, so it was very open and there wasn't much privacy. At about 4:30 a.m., me, another male officer, and a female officer were working that night. We started hearing strange sounds from upstairs, like someone was walking around. We all looked at each other as if to say, "What is that?" And then just shrugged. Then we heard banging sounds coming from the ceiling, as if someone were hitting something. We looked at each other again, and I said, "I'm going to check this out." I went upstairs, but I didn't find anything. There is no one there, so the noises don't make sense. I went back down to my co-workers and told them that I hadn't seen anything, but that I would look around outside just in case. I looked all over outside but didn't find anything. So I went back inside, and the banging started up again as soon as I did. This time, louder than the last time. My 2 co-workers were looking at me like, "What do we do?" I went to my car to get my sidearm and flashlight. I went upstairs to find out where the banging was coming from. It was coming from behind a wall, so I couldn't see what was making the noise, but I could hear it. I looked around with my flashlight and didn't find anything. The place was empty. I went back downstairs to talk to my co-workers about it. Someone hit something very hard. I don't know what it's like. Again, we look at each other and say, "What's going on?" Then we hear a loud bang that is even louder than the first one. It sounded like it was coming from right outside the door, where there is just an open hallway that leads to the cells. Before, I opened the door and looked around with my flashlight to see what was making that noise. When something suddenly grabbed me by the shoulder and pulled me into the hallway, I fell to the ground and my flashlight flew out of my hand and broke my sidearm, which was halfway down the hallway. I turned over right away to find out what had caught my attention, but all I could see was this vapor disappearing into the air. I was so frightened. I got my flashlight and weapon and went back to where my co-workers were. They asked me right away what had happened. I told them that I saw something out in the hallway that I didn't know what it was and that it just disappeared right in front of my eyes. Even though it doesn't happen all the time, we still hear those sounds sometimes. We used to go after them, but we don't do that anymore. So far, I've tried to catch on camera some of the strange things that have happened in our jail cell. I haven't had any luck, but if I do, I'll send them in for sure. In 2004, I was part of the military police in Iraq. It was a game of Russian roulette every hour of every day. There was no way to know where these explosives were except to drive and hope that nobody's tires were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I.E.D.S. They spoke to them. Every time I escaped death, it was like getting the right answer from a coin toss. So, it goes without saying that I was always on edge, running on what I'd call Red Bull, and working 18-hour shifts. When your senses are always on high for that long, you don't always know if you can trust them. That's how your nerves get too tense, which can lead to PTSD. I had severe PTSD symptoms when I got back to the US, but you know what? It wasn't because people were shooting at me. Even though that was a big part of what I did. Iraq is like a big acid trip, as you can see. Ancient ruins of some kind are everywhere, and the people who live there don't think much of them. Things that were built around the time that Jesus walked the earth aren't important, and you'll find all kinds of things and 100 different dialects over there. It was another group of ruins like this. An old city that had fallen off the map, where thieves and thugs had set up camp and decided that I and my group were now fair game. I was in an APC, and I was in the gunner's nest on top of it. I left the steering wheel of my car in the hands of other men. The group of men didn't move away from the cannon. I used to cut pieces out of the old ruins. They were hiding behind some of them, but I think that something made them come out into the open. You can't just say no to an invitation like that. I was about to shoot them down when 3 or 4 tall figures ran out of the ruins and ate them. My eyes told me that I was seeing rabid dogs walking around. My brain told me that this couldn't be happening, but those bandits weren't being killed by my hallucinations. No one stopped to eat. They started to jump towards my group like big, angry dogs. And they scared me so much that my hand was shaking so much. I almost couldn't aim the AP-6 cannon or fire it. If you know anything about what happens in Iraq, you might know that giants have been found in the Iraqi mountains. Yes, I'm talking about the giants in the Bible who lived during the time of Noah but aren't talked about much. So, I had heard bits and pieces of that from other soldiers, but I didn't take it too seriously. I guess this is a cool place. And by area, I mean the whole Middle East, which is known for strange and supernatural things. So, I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised, but these big dog-like things just kind of shrugged off the bullets. 2 of them had died because of their wounds. I knew I could kill the rest of them based on what I saw, but they ran away. I took it all as a sign that I needed to take a break. My turn to sleep finally came, but that wasn't the end of my problems. Weird sounds and a strange house filled the night. My men didn't know what to think because the sounds sounded like they were coming from very large wolves. I didn't say a thing. I knew, deep down, that we were being chased. The ones that made it were real, and I'm sure they wanted to get back at us. I was confused about how I knew this. It was just a gut feeling, like when my deepest instincts turned out to be right. I just had a feeling I was going to be killed. I mean, I knew that terrorists and people who support them would strike back, but they didn't have the sharp senses that would have let them zero in on me. Just like these animals. The strange howls and growls I heard from these rabid humanoid wow dogs a few nights ago were far away, but not so far away that they would come calling if I fell asleep for too long and woke up. Not long after that, I was let go because my mental health made me unfit to serve. Many servicemen have had this happen to them, but no one ever talks about it. The howling even followed me home to Maine, showing how the things have followed me across the ocean. I can't find out. Or maybe the sound is giving me bad dreams. I don't know if they are really made of flesh and blood or only partly. Guns, barricades, and iron bars are never far enough away these days. It's the only way I could get a few hours of sleep after hearing my own heartbeat for so long. My heart will probably stop before any of these demons come to kill me. Thanks for letting me tell you my story.